Can you tell a company's story if you don't know where the narrative is heading? Our guest today breaks down the necessity of truly knowing a company's goals so that the story that's being told can become the reality, and puts the story as the foundation for aligning a company. Welcome back to Marketing Trends. I'm your host, Jeremy Bergeron, and today we're joined by Francois-Xavier Reodo, who goes by FX and is the CMO of Capgemini Invent North America, where he leads growth for Capgemini Invent and Frog. Capgemini Invent, which is part of the Capgemini Group, is focused on helping its customers transform their businesses from strategy to design by using the latest technology and data science methods. FX shares with us his and Capgemini's interesting narratives. Let's jump into their stories. Before we dive into this conversation, I wanted to say thank you to our partners at Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing. Now let's get into it. I love the first question that you actually presented, which is awesome. FX, you are in Austin this week for South by Southwest. This is your first South by Southwest experience?
Yes, this is the first time for me in Austin, actually, in Texas.
Okay, well, that's actually a pretty beautiful experience. Like, coming to Austin is a big win. Coming to Austin for the first time is a win. During South by Southwest is a pretty interesting time to be here.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about kind of the importance of the event, and also for Frog and Capgemini and kind of your experience here.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to know South by Southwest. It's my first. I'm very impressed that they bring all together, the techies, the artists, the musicians. So it's a really key, unique space, I think, right now in the US. And I think there is the opportunity for us to make this one of our key moments, that we want to engage with clients, and also beyond clients that we want to build brand on, because this is a good occasion to, look at engaging with creative talents as well as we recruit and as we grow. Here in Austin, we have one of our marquee studio for Frog, I would say. It's been rated one of the top 25 office in the US.
Wow.
It's a pretty cool space. So we have the amazing opportunity to bring a great experience for our clients here. So we try to engage around the event for that. We invited more than 60 people, to kind of join us, and we had some activations around that. And then the cool thing from a marketing and communication perspective that we've brought this year is we had a bit of a geofencing campaign where we were targeting everybody in South by Southwest to see some of our brand elements and kind of get to know Frog a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I think we've been quite successful because we generated more than 1 million impressions. So
wow, yeah, you said something when you first got here about you want to go bigger next year.
Yeah.
So what went in? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing that leads you to think, okay, next year we come back, we go bigger?
Yeah, what's really impressive about this event, as I understand it, right, and I need to, of course, obviously work a lot around it, but is that the event is not in one place. It's all around the city. You kind of go attend different events, attend different demos, experience different brands, and I think there is a very interesting way to possibly interact differently with clients around it and prospects. And I would be interested to have Frog almost be the host of the event for some of our people traveling from the different places around the US, and kind of tailor, the experience of the event for them, and trying to leverage different places around the city for them to see what they need to see that is relevant to their verticals. And I think, Frog used to be very famous for throwing the South by Southwest opening party.
Oh, okay.
I think this is something that we may want to explore as well in the future.
Yes. Well, I started looking more into Frog after we connected with you, and just seeing that. I love the content and the angles around sustainability and around design and around how they think about the impact of some of these, big, small, medium players that they're starting to rethink how they're producing their products and services and how they can be more sustainable. And so the Frog connection is really interesting. It seems like there is a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. Frog is very famous around human-centered design. So that's not only around the creative and the artwork element of it, but also around the experience. At Capgemini Invent, we like to think that, as Frogs is coming into this family, it's our play in what we call the customer first element, which is basically every interaction that as a business you may have with your customer, Frog can kind of strategize around it, can design the platform, design the look and feel, design the experience. And I think this is bringing, a new story for Invent that is very strong. I'm really happy to have the chance to work on Frog in this role because I think it's a brand that chief design officer and chief customer officer actually love. And when you're working around branding, when you're working around marketing, and we want to connect with this audience, having love for a brand, I think is it's everything that you wish for. So having that good kind of step like a building block to start with as we try to scale up our marketing efforts in North America, I think is an excellent place to start.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to take a second to kind of reflect on you a little bit here, because again, I think if people will Google you and check you out, which they inevitably will, you'll see that FX has had a really interesting path, certainly at Capgemini Invent, and I want you to touch on that a little bit. I want to ask you just kind of outside perspective, kind of coming in early days of Capgemini, because you went through the ranks really high to now be a CMO in your first 4 or 5 months in the role, right?
Yeah, in the US, yes.
Yeah, in the US. So I just want to kind of understand your career path, because I look at your resume, so to speak, and I see a guy who clearly, was able to capitalize and move very quickly in a very big organization that has a lot of brilliant people. And not only in the marketing world, which to me, you're in the most unique position in the executive leadership world. The CMO is the most interesting character on the whole ELT, I think, because you have to be able to align with all these stakeholders, with the team. You very much carry the culture of the brand and the company. So I'm very impressed, and I'm curious about just your path. I'd love to hear the story just of like, how did you get into there? How did you move so quickly into the CMO role? Maybe there's some things you got to do along the way that you think here's some capstones or stepping stones for you. Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, career, it's a mix of, luck, encounters, and then being on the right topics when you need to be. In my case, I think I've been lucky that, I had the curiosity to every now and then want to relocate. So I kind of changed geographies very fast. I started my career here in the US actually about 11 years ago now. And that was my first assignment. And that was the moment that, and maybe Capgemini, that was the moment that Capgemini was trying to basically weaponize a bit more what it was doing with social media. And, how is it that we can build, more connections through LinkedIn, that we can influence people more through those platforms. And I was the youngest person in the team, so I was kind of one of the only person that kind of understood how it works. So we worked on kind of building programs around that. At that time, our mix was very much around events. So the idea was, how do we use the Twitter, etc., to kind of create a connection at events between what's happening physically also at that time already and the digital world and the assets that we had, and I think that was a lucky guess. I then got so from that I got the opportunity to work in France on basically turning our executive into almost like channels of communication for Capgemini. We built it as a program that was around employer advocacy and like kind of putting them pushing their expertise out there, having them touch upon social selling, etc. That was a really great program that I got the chance to work with, where we built a team in India that was kind of syndicating the content, working on some of strategizing a little what those executives needs to position themselves for. This program gained a lot of visibility at Capgemini very early, so I was lucky to be working on it. And
are you from France? You're from,
yes, I'm a French guy.
Where are you from?
I'm
France?
Very remote French area, the deep countryside.
Oh, what's it called?
The name is Clermont-Ferrand.
Clermont-Ferrand. Okay, so Paris, where was that from?
It's
Paris?
Really in the center.
Oh, it's really in the center.
Very in the center.
Okay.
It's famous for only one thing. It's Michelin. The rubber brand is originally from Clermont-Ferrand.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So you had a chance to kind of go back home in some ways to work. Okay, please continue.
And I mean that was I did my study, part of my studies in Asia, so I always had that idea that I want to go back to Asia, and that's where the luck came in. This allowed me to create some connections with some of the executive at Capgemini as well, and that's the moment 7 years ago where Capgemini kind of reset a little its strategy and business in Asia, and nominated Francois-Xavier Salvador, who became my boss, to be the head of this new entity for the group. And I was at the headquarters at the time, and that's where the luck kind of came in. And I kind of pitched myself for a marketing role there as they were creating the entity.
Wow!
And that's been that's been a very lucky guess. So I was in the next plane for Hong Kong, and we had I mean, Capgemini in Asia has been extremely successful, which allowed me from just being the marketing person there to, recruiting a team and scaling it and effectively becoming the director of marketing for Asia Pacific for a very significantly sized business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was when the luck met and the opportunity met the skills. Yeah.
So I'm curious about this, this part of you that is the traveler, the risk taker too. There's a part of you that, that definitely, takes the leap, and maybe in some ways takes the leap and asks questions later. It's like you just go for it. And I've seen, from the little you've just shared, it's like you've taken these, maybe they were strategic, maybe they were just like, I think I'm going to go do this, and you did it to result in this really interesting door opening or this connection that built on top of you. Where does that come from? Is that something that was encouraged by your parents? Like, hey, go, the world is your oyster, go get it. Or was it maybe they were like, don't do that, and you rebelled and went and did it anyway?
Well, I think my parents, when I was younger, were a bit supportive of that, I would say. Yes, I took, in the summer, they asked me to come to the US, do some volunteering work with, on some of those programs where all expenses are paid, but then you work in exchange for that, things like that. So that's how I got a good working English, let's say, but still a pretty bad accent. but that's where I learned English. And then I think when you do that early on, in your teenagers, you kind of want to have that experience again. So when I was looking for my first jobs and I was looking for overseas experiences, I think Capgemini is also a company that allows, we call it the entrepreneurship culture, or really, which is like, you really get, I mean, that's the brand promise, or a little bit of brand, but it's get the future you want, which is both an internal and external facing promise. I really say that in my case, it's something that has been very true. I have been able to always build the business case for what I wanted to do. Sometimes it was in accordance with, a personal project, which was to relocate somewhere new, and matching them has been possible thanks to that culture as well.
Wow. Can you just talk about your relationship with failure? Like, and how did you, it seems like, how do you view failure now versus maybe kind of growing up in your career? Because it seems like you've had some great doors open, but it also, you probably had some challenges as well, right? So how did you kind of view the failure, these failures that kind of set you up for these really cool successes? Yeah,
I would say that I think it's probably true, and I start feeling it much more than as you grow in age, the risk that you take is bigger. Even when you relocate from one country to the other, I think that's also a bigger step than it used to be, just because you're more formed in who you are, in what you like, and in those elements. So as I grow, I think the cost of failure is becoming bigger and bigger, right? So I used to have a mindset which was, and I think it's also important, in the way that I kind of bring culture in my team as well today. I think in marketing, we are very often the change agent in the organization, which is we try things, and when you try by nature, you fail very often. The campaigns don't work. An event that you set up, people don't show up. That is just the reality of it. So I think in both you learn in failure. So I really think that's important, and you learn in shock. And in my case, I learned in cultural shock a lot. I learned in cultural shock living in Korea. I learned in cultural shock living in Mexico. I learned in cultural shock living in Hong Kong, and I learned today in the US, because the US still has a very pretty different culture than Europe.
Yeah. Wow. So you spent most of your career in Asia Pacific. How would you compare customer buying behaviors to the West?
Yeah, I think there's two main elements, I think, that are documented. Well, first, of course, there is big difference between the countries in Asia itself, and they have different levels of maturity. I think what's interesting in Asia is that because of the pace of growth, when you look at technology, the adoption of technology has straight been to the latest technologies. So they didn't have the legacy element of it, which we have in the way that we adapt our customer behaviors. They went from zero to the best. So I think that's the main difference. The adoption of the pace of adoption of technology, which when something comes new, it's very easy to evolve very, very fast. So I think the world is more digitalized in China, for instance, of course, but also in Southeast Asia. E-commerce is it's been the norm for already a very long time. So I think that pace of change is just faster. So that's the first element. And the second element, which in our professional service business, which is ours, is also related to that, is the growth that some of the large Asian organizations have known has been so that they're building their system from scratch as well. So if you look at the way that they have the opportunity that large organizations in Europe and the US don't have, which is to build something without a legacy element of things. So it's a complete different conversation, because if you're a professional service, you need to move much faster. And if you're facing directly the customers or in a B2C organization, your ability to meeting their needs through technology is really important because of that element.
What do you notice now, kind of leading North America, in some ways, kind of moving slower and adopting slower than in Asia Pacific? How does that inform your approach and your strategy in this culture?
If we look at North America at the moment, it is true that this innovation is coming, from the Silicon Valley, from Seattle, from here in Austin. There is a lot of new solutions that are coming and disrupt the way that businesses interact with their customers, with their employees. Not to mention, the last 2 years that also impacted a lot in terms of, the expectations from both. I think in North America, it's very interesting to see those big businesses running through that disruption. And it's very different from Asia in that sense that in Asia is less so about disruption than building from scratch, right? So it's that's a little bit what the difference that I see. Here in NA, a lot of businesses that are established are trying to integrate that disruption. So in terms of, as a professional service company, how do we position our conversation in that environment? For us, it's really been about, defining what's next. So, thinking about the sector angle and looking into the evolution of the customer, the customer expectation, looking into how technology are going to disrupt those business model and defining what's the future. And then back to that brand motto, which is get the future you want. It's really about that. So positioning ourselves on the future has been the way that we tackle this.
I love that answer, by the way. That was fantastic. I want like a mic drop button. I can just press mic drop. That was great. That was well done. Thinking about the culture as a marketing leader, and know this being the CMO, and it seems I've had the privilege of connecting with some just brilliant CMOs around the country, and culture really does sit with the marketing, and it's interesting to hear. But I'm just curious from your perspective, how do you create the right culture as a marketing leader at an organization that's as big in scope as Capgemini Invent and Frog? Like, how do you set that culture? How do you create the right culture?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with creating also a culture within the marketing team itself, right? And for me, there is 3 elements that are very important when and I'm almost kind of using always the same message with my team. The first one is what's the story? The story comes first. Every time we are a large organization as well that has a lot of brilliant people that have a lot of things to say, and they write, they comment, they build content and expertise, and then they usually go to marketing and say, hey, put that up on the website. So it's like I think having that idea around how do we kind of not do that, but come from the story that we want to tell, and then kind of leverage those people is very important. What's the story first? The second element, which is very, I think, related to that, is, and that's something that I used for the last 8 years very strongly, is ruthless prioritization. You need to the business by nature is going to go, of course, in different directions, and needs to adapt to a lot of different customers and clients, etc. Of course, there is the numbers of the months, etc., that are going to drive, etc. The way that the marketing kind of prioritize its work is very important. What we push out there and the way that we represent ourselves needs to be extremely segmented, and that has an impact also in terms of the way that you use those MarTech tools that are come today. Is like if you target everybody all the time, then you try to be all things to all people, it's never gonna work. Being ruthless in saying no, in not doing something rather than doing something, I think is sometimes better from the perspective of the culture in marketing than otherwise. And then the last, and I think that comes back to your question earlier, is I think there is in the marketing environment the importance of having a room to fail, basically the possibility to fail, because we have to be the creative people in the organization. We have to be bringing to life new idea. We have to take risks and try things that are not going to work all the time. And having that mindset, even in my team, which is, it's okay for you to fail as long as, we learn from it every time. And then next year we build a bigger campaign on the same topics. I think that's how I would look at it from a culture standpoint.
Wow, I love that. I mean, story, ruthless prioritization, room to fail. I mean, those three things I feel like are just so applicable if we would choose to take those in our own personal lives. Yeah. I mean, but of course in the team. I mean, and there's something very simple and profound about those three things. And I love that. And also the last one tells me that you've created a safe place for the marketing team to fail, right? And I think that's really important. I think especially with the perspective and the experience that you have and that the brand has, to come into a sharp team and it'd be okay to fail, but as long as you're remembering that it's part of the process and you can continue on. And I think that's really important because some people will bounce from marketing team to marketing team afraid to fail because, of the impact. So it seems like you've made it okay to fail around the team, which is great. I think that's awesome. Within reason, of course. Let's see. Does anything change about your approach to marketing in 2022? Now the world has vastly changed the last couple of years. High level, has anything shifted of your approach to marketing in 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that for me is very obvious. At least that's how I feel it. There is the opportunity now to resume physical activities. If you look at a company like Capgemini Invent and Frog, who are companies that are B2B, of course, the strong element of our marketing mix before the last 2 years was relating on, bringing people in a room and telling them something and presenting them insights, or going to trade shows and fair, attending South by Southwest, those types of things. I think what I'm convinced on, and I think the last few days at South by Southwest has built into that conviction, is that this year is the big return of the physical activities for us. And we're already kind of brainstorming a lot between the team in, how do we invest wisely in this? There is, I think that's going to be the big difference, and people are going to be willing to do it, happy to do it, looking forward to be able to resume, meeting people, and hop on a plane, something that they haven't done in 2 years.
Yeah.
And attend the trade shows and share a beer with their vendors and share a beer with their clients and share a beer with their colleagues. So I think for me, in terms of going back to a marketing mix that includes that as part of it, is the bigger change. And if you think about it, there is, when you think around a brand, you need to think around the experience of the brand. And for us, the experience of the brand is related to, those studios that I mentioned before, and related to or you can touch us, interact with our experts, see them, and I think that's really how we bring that back.
Is there any sort of experimental marketing that happens? As you look across the marketing mix, is there a percentage of budget devoted to experimental marketing? If so, what's some big bets you made experimentally in terms of marketing?
Well, that's a great question. I think what's the way going back to that element of culture that we discussed before. I think we're trying to experience new things in everything that we do. The way that sometimes it's the way that we use technology. Sometimes it's the way that we use content. We try to have a rule in terms of content. For instance, in terms of what's informative versus what's provocative, and so we do have a percentage on this in terms of what we're trying to say. So there is room from both the story angle to experiment new things, and then there is room in terms of channels and tools that we use. We don't have a budget per se that is dedicated to that, but we have built in, as part of every campaign that we run, I like to call them key moments that we have during the year. I always try to bring new things. I think for South by Southwest, for instance, is the first time that we try to add this element of geofencing advertising to the mix, and that is something that somehow is experimental for us right now, though it's not a new technology.
Right.
But this is something that we may want to do more. So we try it once and then we expand.
Do you have any like C-level ABM initiatives on the horizon?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any high level visibility into that, or kind of the things you're thinking about in terms of C-level ABM initiatives?
Yeah. So if you look at, Capgemini is a 370,000 people organization, and Capgemini Invent, within that very IT technology driven organization, is the innovation and transformation powerhouse of the sub brand of the group. And what we are trying to do, but basically, if you think around it from a brand perspective, what Capgemini Invent is doing for Capgemini is to extend our reach and positioning from, sometimes the CIO, the CTO, people that are very technology driven, to other members of the C-level. So part of our marketing mix, that is to, engage with, chief marketing officers, chief HR officers, CEOs, making ourselves relevant to the CEO agenda, are very much at the core of what we are trying to push from a marketing and communication plan. To be more specific, for us, it's really about thought leadership on the market, of course, which is, what is it that we built that is at the core of, their pain points, what they care about, what they think about, and then how do we bring them in an experience for them to understand that content. For the last 2 years, it's been a lot of, webinars, one-on-one exchanges, but I think we have the opportunity to bring back, events and briefing sessions, etc. And I think that will bring a lot of value to them.
So 72% of marketers say that meeting customer expectations is more difficult than it was a year ago, now more. How has this played out for you? What is your team doing to tackle this consistent challenge of rising customer expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I think customer expectations have risen a lot also in the new digital world. They are being mobilized to attend a lot of different sessions. They are being mobilized to be online very often, and I think there've been a lot in our cases when we're trying to share messages, share content. There've been a lot more picky around how they use their time. So that has been for us, I think probably one of the things that we've had to tackle on that front. The way for us that we have deal with this is to refocus a little bit of our content around those key moments and moments that matters, and to be a lot more targeted in the way that we reach out to them. I think increasing the quality of our content, being a little bit more thought-provoking, more forward-looking, insights-driven, rather than thinking around projecting our capabilities or kind of our portfolio of offers and things like that.
Exactly.
I think has been extremely important to kind of maintain that connection with them and maintain that conversation ongoing. Capgemini Invent is full of the brightest people that have the expertise, and our wealth and what we market at the end of the day is that expertise. This ability to project, the fact that we are able to solve complex solutions, whether they are from the design, the transformation, or even in the key areas of connected products and services, and kind of take those problems and find scalable solutions. I think is key. But you do not sell that from the angle of this is what I know how to do. You sell it from the angle of this is the expertise that I have in this. This is what's going to happen to the business. This is the expertise that we have. This is also some of the stories that we've done with some of the other on the marketplace.
That's great. That's a great answer. 78% of marketing organizations have changed or reprioritized metrics due to the pandemic. What has become the most valuable metric for you and your team in this new era?
I'm changing a little bit my mindset as well in how I look into this. As marketers, of course, we always look at as the people that bring the leads in. So you bring the sales. Or metrics that the metric that I look at closely, is in our CRM. what's the amount of tagged opportunity that are coming from marketing and communication campaigns and activities. So this is something that we look closely at, but that is kind of our bread and butter, right? If you look at, I think, where Invent is right now in North America, and the reason why I'm changing a little bit, at least rebalancing a little bit what I look at, we have undergone a giant transformation, and we have that family of brands with Frog with design, and Synapse on the other hand that looks at connected products and services. That is kind of building into that story, and I think that story is not told to the market at best at the moment. The brand awareness and the way that we that we are famous for me becomes more and more important rather than targeted kind of market share exercise. So looking at how do we tell that story in a consistent way across all of those different elements is for me the most important one. So brand awareness for me is becoming a more and more important metrics at a moment where I think we have a pretty cool story to tell.
On that note of brand awareness, it seems like it can be one of those, elusive things to measure.
Yeah.
How do you look at measuring brand awareness? What are some of the things that you look at?
Yeah. So I think for me there's qualitative and quantitative elements to brand awareness. I think the first element that we look at is extremely quantitative. We have a research partner every year that tells us where we are and where we stand. So that's for me one of the elements. I think more interesting than this is going into qualifying that brand awareness. We look at it by C levels, for instance. So more members of the C-suite depending on the ones that we target, and also what are the elements kind of building into that brand awareness. So when you know Capgemini Invent, what do you know about Capgemini Invent? What do you know if they're strong on? Do you know if they're strong in these elements or not? When do you know Frog? What do you know around Frog? So I think this is how we do it, and then we compare ourselves to the competition as well. And then back into that point, I think going back into the role that Capgemini Invent plays for Capgemini, I think it's interesting to see if Capgemini Invent as a brand does that job of connecting to new C-level more than the Capgemini brand itself. So that's how I qualify the hard metrics, that is, interviewing people.
Yep.
Then the qualitative element of it is interesting as well, because for me, I think staying in touch with my sales colleague, who at the end of the day are my most important stakeholders in the organization, is very important. And the sales colleague will always tell you that, what's important for me, when I pitch or when I have a first conversation with a new contact, is to not lose that first 10 minutes explaining who we are. And in Asia Pacific, for instance, year after year, I could have less and less of this conversation with my sales colleagues when they will tell me, I'm spending the first 10 minutes of any meeting explaining what Capgemini stands for and who we are. Keeping those 10 minutes and already being able to walk in the room with some recognition is making completely the difference. And that's also what makes them call you rather than you kind of reaching out to them through your marketing activities. So I think that's the qualifying elements. The last and probably one of the most important point, I think on that one, especially after the last 2 years and the context today, is what do your people think about your brand? Is that brand, making them proud of working for Capgemini Invent, Frog, Synapse? Is that brand making them happy about it? Are they, feeling that they're getting experience from that is, relevant to the brand promise? In our case, you're getting the future that you want. And I think that's an element of metric that is very important. That is, if you look at hard KPIs, that can be retention, that can be the internal survey that you run.
So I also saw this interesting stat that Capgemini had been recognized as this global leader in the standard of ethical business practices. They were voted one of the world's most ethical companies, which I think it's an amazing title. And I think they've gotten that several years, or at least been in that category, which I think that says a lot about the brand. I mean, it's a massive brand, global reach, and to be one that can say not only that we're doing these amazing things, we're also doing it in an ethical way. What is that like for you, being the marketing leader there, knowing that you're part of this larger org that is just really buttoned up and not cutting corners, and it seems like there's a lot of you're doing a lot of things right as a very large organization, which I think could be easy not to do a lot of things right. You're being recognized as doing things ethically, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, this is something that is extremely important for our CEO, and that is cascading down at all levels within the organization. I think that is for me something that being part of Capgemini, I never challenged or was, sometimes when you're working for an organization, you're thinking maybe there is a little bit of a disconnect between, what is being said and what is the reality. And Capgemini, it's really part of the culture and the identity. If you look at that brand promise, and going back to my brand storytelling priority, that element of get the future you want is an element that I think is very important from an inside out perspective, even before, thinking around how we help our customers get the future we want. I think get the future we want is also around, creating a more sustainable world and economy. It's about creating a more inclusive world and economy, which is also, at Capgemini, we care about digital inclusivity. We have that as one of our priority, which is how do we engage with the rest of the community, make sure that people know how to use this tool, make sure that technology is having a positive impact in the way that people skill themselves, in the way that people grow their career, and of course, diversity of also from gender, race, etc. is a very important topic. So I think those three elements coming together at Capgemini is really part of our core value proposition to our people, and cascaded from the top. Really, I think that's the only way that culture can really be so strong. And we're very proud and very happy about that recognition from Ethisphere.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome. What are your thoughts on this all this conversation around Web3 and NFTs, and kind of what's your perspective? Is there any application of what you're seeing at Capgemini Invent and Frog? Are you bullish on it? Are you kind of waiting, watching?
Capgemini as an organization is very connected to tech trends and new customer expectations, and helping their clients do a lot in this area. Those elements are, of course, coming as the new tool to kind of disrupt a little bit customer experiences and the way that we live, that we interact with technology as humans. I think there will be a lot of we're building, content plans from across the organization to be able to tell that story from our angle with a very differentiated point of view, and stay tuned, there will be more coming up.
Nice. Okay, can you talk about the future, the journey ahead in terms of what you're seeing? Because also being at Capgemini Invent, it puts you at this intersection of a lot of innovation. You're seeing a lot of what's coming. So knowing that you're at a really beautiful intersection, what does the future look like? What do you see ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting for me because I'm also coming from Capgemini and getting to discover Capgemini Invent, which has undergone a lot of change and a lot of I think, exciting new elements of value proposition that we're bringing on board. Working with different talent groups as well, and there is the creative designers, there is the data analysts, there is the strategy consultants, there is, engineers and R&D specialists that are able to kind of connect like products and services. And I think bringing all of those people together from a culture perspective is very difficult. As the CMO of the organization, my first role, and I think it's really interesting, how the culture of bringing this together is really oriented around the story that we tell as a brand. And it's almost like, you need to kind of, it's going to be story driven, which is, end-to-end view on what is it that we can offer. If you think around it, I think the differentiated value proposition is very clear, which it is that we can help, products and services along the wall, build products and services and bring to life what's next along the full products and services life cycle, from the ideation, the design, the specs, the business model, the strategy, and the customer experiences, and then the tracking and the KPI to sustainability, which is how do you then kind of retire those products and services, and how do you make sure that they have no impact on the environment. And that kind of 360 view is our differentiated value proposition on the marketplace. Being able to tell that differentiated value proposition and that story for Capgemini Invent is an outside exercise, but this is an exercise that is strengthening us inside as we transform and make those people work together. So if you ask me what's on my roadmap, this is really what it is. It's, you have Frog, and you have Synapse, and you have Capgemini Invent, and you have others that are coming in, and you're thinking, all of those people have different cultures, they have different ways to see the world, but then the idea is how do we kind of unite them around one one brand story that is beneficial to our clients and customers.
How do you do that?
How do I do that?
How do you unite them?
I like to think about it as a coalition, building a coalition. So you're building a coalition of professionals that have very different expertise, that respect each other, but that are rallied around that brand promise that we have, which is we have this ability to bring to life what's next. And I think that's for me how you do it. So it's really like kind of bringing people together around that big vision and the big story.
Awesome, that's great. Only 36% of marketers strongly agree that the training they receive from their company sets them up for success. What skill sets are more valuable for your team now than they were a year ago? How have you invested in improving key skills?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for this question. Actually, I mean, the Capgemini Research Institute has worked on this topic and interviewed more than 1,600 B2C marketers to be able to come up with understanding, what is the skill gap, what is it that CMOs are looking for in the playbook for CMO. And as a matter of fact, only 11% of marketers are considered data-driven. And I think if you think around it, this is where the gap is. And what we see in the research is that, when you look at the brand awareness impact, which is very much related to a lot we've discussed today, the data-driven marketer have a twice greater impact than the others. And when you look at, that market share element and the activities that is related to sales generation, data-driven marketers are 2.5 times more impactful in the results that they give to the company. So if you think around that, and I think as a CMO myself, I see it in the team, as we look into new technologies such as intent, as, so things around that, that is the, kind of the hot skill in the market right now. You can build it in two ways. I think you need to think around how you boost the skill of it. People that are already there in the team. So we're definitely investing on this in order to be able to not necessarily, become data-driven marketers themselves, but being able to work with data-driven marketers, being able to work with third-party agencies, be able to integrate a data-first mindset to what they're doing. And then, of course, acquiring the skills in the team, which is recruiting new people on a market which is quite hot.
75% of marketers say that the pandemic has permanently shifted how they communicate and collaborate at work. What methods of collaboration have been the most effective for you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, Capgemini is already a very digital organization before the last 2 years. And I was lucky enough in Asia Pacific to be running a team of overseas people that were in the different countries around the region. So I think for me, running a team in a digital environment is about keeping, a connection and around rituals, which is, team meetings are not only for KPI setting and discussions around the ongoing campaigns, but to understand better who people are beyond work, at work, what's important for them, how to value them, what's next for them, etc. And I think, that element of management has surely became a lot more important in the pandemic area. I think, being in different countries, we had different, elements also of non-market kind of disruption, and it's been always very interesting for me to and I mean, Capgemini really had that idea about let's refocus on people, let's make sure that our managers are very well aware of how to take care of people, talk to those people in these times, and I think that has been an element of success, and that made people stay with us in our team, made us efficient, and make us work as an organization together.
Okay, let's do the lightning round. For those of you listening for the first time, we're grateful that you're here. For those of you who have been here with us since the beginning, you know who you are. This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. For those of you who want to learn more, head over to salesforce.com/marketing. We've got FX in the house, CMO for Capgemini Invent. First question, lightning round. FX, texting or talking?
I prefer texting.
What's one thing that you truly love and appreciate about yourself?
I would say curiosity. I'm a curious person, so I think that's been doing quite well for me.
I like that one. What's your favorite day of the week?
Well, I would say Friday probably, because this is the end, but and I value my free time a lot. But overall, I think Wednesday is a good day.
Okay, Wednesday midweek. Okay, what's favorite city? Now, you've traveled a lot around the world, but what's your favorite city in the U.S. besides the one you live in now?
Well, I live in New York. I think my favorite city in the U.S. beside this one would be Austin, maybe.
Hey, great answer. It's recorded. We got that recorded. So, all right. What would you rather be able to speak every language in the world,
No.
or be able to talk to animals?
Every language in the world. I traveled to China enough to know that it's very difficult when you don't speak languages to connect with people and be very efficient on where you are and what you do.
Got it. What's your favorite holiday?
Well, I say Christmas, family time. Yeah.
Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
I used to be extremely good, but I think I have lost it. It's been 7 years that I'm not driving. So
wow.
Yeah. So I would say probably 5, but I mean, I used to be a strong 8.5.
Okay. Please fill in the blank. Something wise my elders taught me was?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Would you rather have invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Okay. All right. Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
I don't think it is.
Okay. We've gotten some interesting answers to that one, so yeah, it's good. If you weren't in marketing leadership, what would you be doing?
I would be an architect. So when I was younger, I really, really wanted to be an architect. I was, because I'm from a very deep countryside.
Okay.
So I was always fantasizing around big building and like superstructure. And as I traveled, I kind of kept that as something that is important for me. So I'm a bit of a geek. I go on the forum and I talk about urbanism and like architecture. And then I was lucky enough to travel to Dubai and then those places where they built crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And now, as I age, I think I'm focusing more on the, kind of connection between architecture and human around urbanism, but also, design spaces and things like that. That's why I was super happy to be in Frog this week, because our Austin studio is designing probably kind of the best way that you can for an office, and that was really cool.
I want to see. I need to go see the Frog studio.
Yeah,
now that I know they're
go
here.
Anytime.
Yeah, I gotta go. What's your least favorite marketing buzzword?
Synergy.
Synergy. Okay. Last one. What would you go back and whisper into the ear of your younger self about being a marketing leader?
Do first, apologize later.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Thanks again to Salesforce for making this show possible. To learn more, head over to salesforce.com/marketing.